to Widow Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole. I'm sitting here with my friend and co-host Mark Massaro. How's it going, Mark?
It's going fantastic. How are you?
Good, but I ask you. So,
I said fantastic.
okay, but let's expand. Use your words. Did you ever say that to
Okay.
your kids when they were little? Use your words.
When they were little?
Like, okay, littler, like little.
Yes, I still use that
Okay.
all the time.
You
Yes.
know, when they were first learning to talk, and it was like, and you're like, use your words. So
Yes.
what I'm saying is use your words and expand. What's
Okay.
been going on with you?
Hold on. I'm doing really well. That's a
Good.
little inside joke
Glad
for
about
Tina
that.
there.
Okay.
We always correct each other to not say good, to say I'm doing
Oh,
well.
oops.
And it's just this whole like inside joke thing that like when you go to the grocery store and if someone asks you or you ask them how they're doing and they say they're good and then you say you're doing well, that it's kind of like it's like this joke we have that people automatically think that you think you're better than them if you say I'm doing well.
Really?
Yeah.
Funny.
Cuz it's like the proper way to say it.
Oh,
You know,
I'm
it's
gonna
like
try
proper
that.
grammar or whatever. I'm all or
Good job.
whatever. So, anyways, I'm doing really well. And
Good.
let's see. Okay, so people are going to think I'm lying based off of the past couple episodes, but I was showing a house the other day out in the boonies
Uh-huh.
and I saw this huge owl. Like
Really?
yeah, really. Like just I was coming around this bend and all of a sudden I see this massive wingspan. Like some owls are
Whoa.
huge. And he flew up in the tree. And then, like a few minutes later, I saw a falcon carrying, or a hawk or something like that, carrying a bunny, which was sad, but nature, right?
Aw.
So, and I'm like, where am I? Like, and then I saw like a turkey vulture. So, yeah, anyways, and I did not get out of the car and fight any of them,
Okay,
just
good.
to be clear. So,
Do you like showing houses? Like, do you dress up and like, here's
I
this, here's this?
do.
Like,
Yep.
what's it like?
So I do, obviously I dress professional and,
Nice.
I go into the house and I have my MLS listing with me. And as we walk in, I say, okay, well, this house is, 1,900 square feet. It's on the market for 340, whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then just kind of let them look around and we talk about different things when we go into different rooms. And
Nice.
fortunately, I have a lot of knowledge of like, construction and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So it helps that there's a lot of questions that I can answer. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, things have been going well. It's been just a lot of work stuff, and gosh, I feel like there's been so much more, but I'm kind of drawing a blank on anything exciting or interesting that's happened. So, how about you? What's up with you?
Well, nothing like hugely exciting, but this is an interesting story. So, as you guys know, we have a golden doodle named Bentley. He's 3 years old, and we have the hardest time like keeping his hair cut the right length. We let it grow too long, and then they have to shave him, and it's so sad. So it was really long, and like he had like burrs in it, like these little things all stuck in his hair, and it was just gross. And Joel's like, "We need to get this done before my parents come," which his parents are coming tonight. We need to make this dog look a little better. And so yesterday, so I made the appointment and Joel took him and they call him and they say, "Come back. We can't do this. He has too many burrs." So he gets there and he's half shaved. Like literally his head was not shaved. It looked like a lion and then his body was shaved and then half of his legs. He looked crazy. And I was like, "Are you?" So he calls me. He's like, "So I'm out in the parking lot. I'm getting his burrs out, and then I'm gonna bring him back." Oh, so they told him you need to go take him to a vet to do a vet shave and like all this crazy stuff. But he's sitting in the parking lot taking out the burrs with pliers. Like he FaceTime me and he's like trying to take him out. He brings them back in and they go, "How'd you do that?" He's like, "My pliers." Like so then they wouldn't finish him. Like they didn't have time and they didn't feel comfortable. So he came home a half shaved dog, but we took him back in this morning and they finished him. But he just doesn't look the same. He looks like a greyhound. Like his face is so skinny and gross. And like Haley's like, "He is not cute. It's not my dog. He's not my dog," you know. So that was an interesting story. Like I can't believe they sent him home last night, half done, and they didn't charge him. They just sent him out. Like we needed to go figure it out. But Joel talked to the store manager and they got him in with somebody today who's like the head person, and she was really great. But they did call me. Oh, they made him buy some spray for this cut and said, and bought him like these hemp things to help him calm down and said, you need to buy these and give it to him because he's really hyper before he comes in. So he gave him those this morning and he dropped him off at like 7 this morning. And anyways, that's
They
my
gave him the
Bentley
military
story.
cut,
Yes. So
high and tight.
yeah, I don't really love it. Not so cute, but whatever. I'm like,
I know Tina relates to that. She has 2 golden doodles and has to shave
oh,
them,
that's right.
and they get
Right.
matted or whatever
It is so
if it
hard
goes
to
too long.
keep up with golden doodle hair. Like it's crazy, but we like him longer. Like we love the long look, but we just can't. Even if we brush him, he just gets matted. The last 2 or 3 times Haley cut his hair, and it took like 6 hours. But this was so bad. I'm like, we have to start over, because it was just like he was. It was so bad. He was like chewing on himself, and then he started bleeding. I'm like, we got to take care of this. So if anybody cares, that's my Bentley golden doodle story. I haven't had a lot of other things because it seems like it was less than a week ago that we podcasted. So just, busy with life and
No marathons, no
No, I haven't.
skydiving,
no, like
bridge
pretty-
jumping.
No, it's pretty tame. We did
What
go
a dull life.
paddleboarding. It's still nice weather. It was like 86 on Saturday. So we went paddleboarding, which was really fun. And then Joel and I do this thing where we try to go to a new restaurant every time we go out. So we have this whole like running list. So we found a new cute one the other day. It's just fun. Keeps
Yeah.
things new and fresh. So we don't ever go to the same restaurant twice, unless I'm with my kids, and then it's Red Robin every time. But for Joel and I, we're always finding different restaurants. And
What if you find one that's just like awesome? Do you go back, or is it just
We
on the
haven't
list for the
yet.
future?
It's for the future, and
Okay.
so we could go back at some point. Yeah. So that's been kind of fun, but nothing big and exciting. I mean, we're excited for his family to come, like his parents today, his sister tomorrow, and then I think his brother will be coming over to visit on Friday. So his cousin's getting married. Like, he's getting wedding. Yeah. So, or she's getting married. So we're excited about that. It's going to be a Brazilian wedding. Like they're going to have Brazilian food and dancing, and I'm really
Oh,
excited.
okay.
So I mean, I guess the
Like,
Brazilian
what's
part is-
Brazilian food like? Is it similar to like
so-
Mexican food, or?
I mean, they do a lot of rice and beans, but from what I know, because I've been out to like Brazilian restaurants a few times, it's really fun. It's like, what's that called? Like a buffet. You go through and
Okay.
it's like a stick of like chicken wrapped with bacon. I always get that. And then you like pile things on your plate, and then they weigh your plate, and then they charge you like per pound.
Oh, like frozen yogurt.
Yes, it's like frozen yogurt. There's these Brazilian restaurants. I mean, I'm not doing a good job describing it. There's all kinds of things that I don't really know and stuff like that. But I do know pão de queijos. Like, I do know a few things. So pão de queijos, we have them for breakfast all the time. They're like these little balls filled with cheese. Like they're
Ooh.
breaded on the outside. So Joel used to make them like from scratch, and then we found some in a store that you can just buy and put in the oven. So or the
Oh, that
toaster.
sounds
I
good.
mean the air fryer.
It probably
So-
doesn't help that I'm hungry.
Right. I
I'm
kind
like,
of
tell me all
am-
about the food.
Yes, and here's another one I know, brigadeiras. Those are little chocolate candies. They're so good. The first time Joel came here, he made them for our family. They're like a chocolate, it's hard to explain, like a candy. And his aunt just said they made a whole bunch for the wedding. So I was like, oh yeah.
But like, he made chocolate?
Yeah, so it's like cocoa powder and stuff, and then you melt it
Oh,
in
okay.
sugar, and they're like little, like they're kind of gooey.
Like
They're
fudge?
kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to send you some someday so you guys
Yeah,
can try 'em. Like,
please.
they're really good.
Tell Joel. Like, go get him right
Okay.
now.
Okay. Oh.
I want some, what are they called again?
Brigadeiros. Like
Brigadeiros.
My accent.
Does the R roll?
Yeah.
Brigadeiros.
Brigadeiros. Anyways, let's get into our episode.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think people are done with us and they want to hear what we're talking about. Okay, you got to listen carefully to the title. Ready?
Yes.
People are clueless. As if.
Rolling
Right?
with the homies.
So how did
Yep.
you guys?
Hey, wait. Was that your phone?
Oh shoot!
Did everybody hear that?
Once. in
Yep.
93 episodes.
I would think by
Once.
episode 100 you're going to get that down.
Okay.
I just had to.
anyway.
I'm sorry.
I
Yes,
know, I
fantastic
totally forgot.
title.
Yes.
So,
what does that
let's
mean
talk
to
about
you?
it. Okay. Well, as you go through this, well, first of all, I want to preface this by saying that we strongly believe in showing people grace. That's the point of this. But it's
Sure.
fun to talk about it sometimes. And we've heard some silly things. And we realized that we did an episode called Ridiculous Things People Say. And we just kind of wanted to expand upon that because a lot of you in the beginning, and I know there's a lot of people that probably haven't gone back and listened to a lot of our older episodes. So you probably have experienced some of this stuff, and we just want you to know that this is normal and that people a lot of times will say silly things, and sometimes they don't know what to say. Sometimes they're trying to say something helpful, or like, for example, and we'll get into the specifics of this later, but they'll say, I totally understand what you're going through because of X, Y, and Z. And first of all, you should never say that to somebody.
No.
No matter what, even widowed to widowed, we all do it. We're all guilty of it, but even widowed to widowed, saying like, I totally understand what you've been through is not accurate.
Right.
Because even you and I, we both lost our spouses to cancer. It was very different.
Yeah.
So anyways, what is it? What do you like,
Well, first of all, I prefer that people say clueless things over not talking at all.
as
I feel like
if.
okay, you're going to say that so
Sorry.
many times. And I do want to point out that Mark came up with the title. That was a good one. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
So I first
No
of all,
doy.
I haven't heard that since like the 80s. No doy.
Uh,
Like it was like no duh, but there was also like it was really annoying. No doy.
yeah. Tina and I watched a funny video where it was like all these like it was like a couple breaking up in like 90s references or something.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, he's like, I thought I was too legit to quit. Or
Oh
whatever.
my God.
Like, yeah, there was a lot of good ones. But anyways, so yeah.
Okay, so anyways, I would rather somebody say something than not. So I'll just start with that. But let's talk about all of these things that people say. Well, we can like share our ones that people have said to us, and then I can share more from grief recovery and what I've heard. There's a lot of things out there, but my top my top saying that I hate, God just needed another angel.
Mm.
I can't stand that one because first of all, we know that when people die, they're saved, they will go to heaven, they do not become an angel. And so that one really bothers me. And God doesn't need someone pointed this out to me the other day. We were talking about these things. We do it in grief recovery. We talk about all this stuff that people say. And she's like, yeah, and God doesn't need anything. Like he doesn't need someone. I was like, oh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my like least favorite thing that anyone's ever said to me. It just I don't like it. It's not true. Number one, it's not true. And God didn't need an angel. Like he didn't need to call Luke to heaven because he needed him as an angel. So that one kind of bothers
And
me.
honestly, it's a downgrade. A lot of
So
people don't
true.
know that human beings rank above angels. In the now, obviously, we don't have the powers they have, but they also don't have free will. They're not made in God's image, is my understanding. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like that's what I know to be true. But from a heavenly perspective, we rank above angels. We will rule over angels in heaven, and that's again. As we said in the beginning of this podcast, neither one of us are Bible scholars, but I've listened to a lot of sermons and I've paid close attention, and I can't quote it exactly, but I feel like that is truth. So if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
I've heard it too.
I'm sorry, but I feel like that's accurate.
So what is your top thing that you don't like that people have said to you?
Well, and I actually just mentioned this recently, but not necessarily from people who are widowed, but from people who are not. I can't even imagine.
I can't even imagine. That really-
That one just drove me nuts. And it was like the kindest intentions, too, of them saying it. They're trying to tell you, like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible what you're going through. That's what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
But for me, it just made me feel so isolated to hear that everywhere I went. Oh, I can't even imagine. It's
Right.
like what I'm hearing is like, oh, your life sucks and I'm so glad I'm not you. Like that's what I kept translating it into in my heart.
Yeah.
And it just made me feel so alone. So that was probably and that's not even like a clueless thing that people said. They're trying to be nice, but for me that was like my that was and I've said this before in the podcast. I actually kind of snapped on somebody after I'd heard that so many times. I was like, he's like, yes, and I'm all going with the clueless theme, and he's all like, and I'm all like, and
And then
then
I
they're
was
all
like,
like, um, but he said, oh man, I can't even imagine. I said, yes, you can. You just don't want to.
wow.
And he like looked at me all weird. I'm like, well, think about it. Think about that. Your wife is sick. She's dying. She's falling apart, and you have to watch it every day and still be dad and hide your feelings from everybody, and including her. And you just have to take it and take it and take it over and over. And your prayers don't seem to do anything and this and that. And I just like went off and I just like looked at him with his eyes like wide open. And I just said, oh man, I'm so sorry. But I felt really bad, but I just heard it one too many times. And poor guy was there to bring me dinner. And I like went off on him, but he understood. He was like, dude, you're going through a lot, man. I totally forgive you. And I was like, yeah, that was messed up, man. I'm just broken. And I've heard so many people say that to me recently. It just makes me feel so alone. And so anyways, that's one of my biggest things. But for me, it's all of the stuff that I've heard, stories from other people that really like blows me away. So you go on. Your
Okay,
turn.
let me give you my second
Yes.
least favorite thing. I understand I'm divorced.
Mm,
Now, I know divorce is a horrible thing, all that. I mean, I'm married to someone who's
yeah.
divorced. But if your kids still have their other parent, it is not the same thing.
Right.
That is not the same thing at all. And so that one has always bothered me. Yes, there are some similarities when someone is divorced, but it is definitely not the same thing. And divorced, you usually had some kind of choice in it.
Mm,
And widowed, we had no choice in it. And so
yeah.
it definitely is not the same. I mean, I know there's some similarities of like being a single parent, but that's not even the same thing. That's not what we're talking about. But just the fact that people try to say they understand, but we do give them grace. They're trying. Like I said, I'd rather them say something, and I've never said anything back to somebody like mean about it. Just like, oh,
Whatever.
thanks. Yeah. I
Just rub it
haven't.
in.
Well, I was trying to say that nicely without saying that you have, but like I just kind of let it go. Let it go. We haven't sung that one in a long time. I was waiting for you to sing it.
As if.
Okay,
I'm on
let's
a whole
go.
different train of thought now.
I know, as if. Okay, so anyways, that's my second favorite, least one, like least
That was
favorite.
so close to English. There you go. Least favorite.
Second least favorite thing that people have said to me. Okay, do you
That
have any more
works.
that people have said to you, or do you just want to share one you've heard?
Um, well, there were things that were said to me that I have since confronted the person about and forgave them. So I'm not going to bring those up. But there were some very hurtful things that were said to me that were shocking for me to hear that they were said about me. But I've totally forgiven the person, and so I'm a big believer in when you forgive someone of something, you should be trying your best to move on from it. I think my dog's scratching at the door. Sorry, it distracted me. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of really silly things, and I'm trying to think what else people have said that really bothered me. Yeah, I've heard heaven needed another angel. I know one of the things that really, really bothered me when Lacey was sick was somebody told me that the reason she's not being healed is because you don't have enough faith.
Oh, I had that one too. Or that it was because Luke didn't have enough faith,
Yeah.
or he had a sin issue. I heard that one too.
Right,
But
right,
let's let you
right.
talk about
Yeah.
yours.
No, yeah, that's about it. But I also did want to comment on the divorce thing that yes, we've talked about this on air several times. We both acknowledge that divorce is very, very hard.
Yes.
And we're just saying it's different. And I know that's what you said, but I just wanted to clarify. I believe the same thing. It's just different, and they're both hard for their own
Yeah.
reasons. But I feel like a lot of times in divorce, um, the love kind of went away for somebody.
Hmm.
Or, I mean, obviously there's different circumstances to every
Right.
situation, but a lot of times the love went away. And that's not how it is when you lose a spouse. You
Right.
love them and
Right.
you don't want them to go away, and they don't want to go away, and obviously every situation's different. But I'm just speaking generally. So I know that there's some different stories out there. We've heard them, but just generally speaking. So I did want to comment on that. And gosh, there's so many things that have been so hard. But yes, I've also heard the um, she's looking down on you, and she's watching over you, and all these different things that they feel good, but I have too much understanding of biblical knowledge to know that that's not true. She's
Hmm.
not watching over me, I mean, now I don't know that she might not be speaking to Jesus on my behalf, but like, I've had people make it where like she's going to come and visit you, and
Oh,
and in all fairness, I don't really know how it works. So, I can't say in absolutes that that's not true. Um because I just don't know, but I feel like I don't feel like that's true. I don't
hmm.
feel like people. Oh my gosh, can you hear my dog scratching at the door? She
Not
really wants
currently.
in. So I'm gonna have to let you talk and get up and grab her. But
Okay.
so that's been something that has really really bothered me. Because I'm like, that's just not true. But yeah, the biggest one was you just didn't have enough. You're just not. You
Oh,
don't have enough faith to
that's
for
awful.
her to be saved. She would be healed. You got to believe in your heart, and she
Yep.
will be saved. And I'm like, I've been doing that. I've been
Yep.
believing and praying, and you know. So, anyways, those are some of my harder things. But I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by this dog. Hold on.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep talking, and you're not gonna know what I said because you're not here. Anyways, so I think for me, I'm stalling so I can say it. You don't know what I
Sorry.
said about you. Ha! You won't know till the episode comes out. Anyways, I didn't say my next thing because I didn't want to repeat it. So, my next
That makes
thing
sense.
that I really didn't like is you'll find someone else. Like, oh, you're young,
Mm,
youngish, well, 29, whatever. And you'll find somebody new. And in the beginning, I did not want that. Like, it was like I was a few months into this and somebody said that. And I was like, no, like it grossed me
yeah.
out. Like,
It's
totally.
even hurtful when somebody says that to you when you lose a dog.
Right.
If
Right.
someone's like, "Oh, you can get another dog," you're like, "I don't want another dog,"
That's
you know?
actually, I think we talked about it's one of the grief myths from the grief recovery is replace the loss. And so
Mm,
people are trying to get you to do that. And I understand it. And eventually I did find somebody else and I was ready for that. But in the very beginning, it wasn't helpful. So, what grief recovery talks about is things that are intellectually true, but they are not emotionally helpful. So, like, you're young, you'll find somebody
mm,
new. Yeah, that's intellectually true. Or he's in a better place. Yes, he is, but that doesn't help me right now. And
yes.
so it's basically like well meaning people that give advice. I'll give you a couple other examples of intellectually true, but they're not helpful. For example, be thankful you have another son, like if someone lost a son.
Mm,
The living must go on, all things must pass. Oh, well, she led a full life. Like that's another one that it's like,
mm,
yeah, it's intellectually true. It doesn't help. You'll find somebody else that's on there. God will never give you more than you can handle. Not true. And be grateful you had him for so long. Like people will
mm.
be like, "Oh, at least you were married for this many years. That's so great." Like, yes, but I didn't get the rest of my life with him.
Well, it belittles your feelings.
Yes.
It like
Um,
takes away from your feelings.
hmm. Yeah, so those are some of the things. So basically, like things that people say are either helpful or they're not. Like but like I said, I would rather somebody say something like, for let's switch it around, instead of saying some of those things, I would rather they say, I have no idea how you feel, but I'm here to listen. Something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, I like
Or
that.
like, I imagine, I have no idea how you feel, but I imagine it's really difficult. Like, I actually said something very similar in grief recovery to someone who was widowed, but a different story than me. Because it was like, I can't be like, I get it totally. Yes, I relate to some of the widow things, but I don't have your
Mm-hmm.
story. And so I think just really giving people that grace, like, it's mostly because people don't know how to deal with grief. There's not enough education, and what's out there is misinformation. Let's just take it way back to, I'm sure we share this in lessons. See, I'm thinking grief recovery, but
Lessons.
I go to lessons because we have lessons. And we have shared this in podcasts before, that the stages of grief are not actually real. Like, they were created for those dying, not for those grieving. And so a lot of people
Hmm.
get mixed up, and they think, what's wrong with me? I'm not going through anger. I'm not going through this. Well, it's because it's not even created for that. I'll give you the facts on the name of her in just a minute, who actually invented it. And so that's just another thing, that there's so much information, misinformation on grief. Like, that's why I'm so passionate about grief recovery, because I want people to actually have information and know that there are myths out there, that there are just so many things that are not true. So let me find that. I'm going to find it to read it to you about her name. But while I'm flipping through pages, what else have, like, anything else you've heard that you want to share that's
No, it's
good?
cool. We'll wait. No, I'm just kidding.
I can edit this out, you
I'm
know.
just kidding. Um, yeah, gosh, it's tough because, like I said, like the people do mean well, and
They
that's
do.
something we have to remember. But the things that, gosh,
Ooh.
it's like so many things I want to say on this that my brain is like slowing down. But so people mean well, and we
Yeah.
have to understand that, and that they don't know what you're going through, so they don't know what to say. Because I remember I used to feel really weird talking to people. So here's the thing that I would want people to take away from this and understand,
Yeah.
is that they don't know. They don't understand. And they're not in a place to accept the darkness that you feel. And most
Mm-hmm.
people want to brush over it. That's why those things are said. That's
Yep.
why they say, oh, well, time heals all things, or, oh, at least she lived a full life, and all the things, you were just mentioning. People say that stuff, but it's sad because they don't know that they're belittling your feelings. And that's not the exact right word I'm looking for. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but they're taking away. They're basically saying, like, don't be sad about it.
Right.
Like,
Oh,
don't be
yeah.
sad about it, because at least this, at least that. And that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And different. I think it's really good to have empathy for other people, even that have been widowed. So, for example, Tina and I, we lost our spouses in very different ways. Hers was instant, mine was long and drawn out. And, hers was, my friend Chris explained it to me. He had a really great analogy. He said, well, for you, it was like somebody slowly ripped off the band aid, and for her, somebody just ripped it off. Both hurt really bad. But the beautiful thing about it is, I have this natural tendency to think what she went through was harder, and she has this natural tendency to think that what I went through was harder. And
Yeah.
so it helps us have a lot of empathy for each other. And honestly, there's been times where I've just pictured her sitting alone on her couch, like eating dinner by herself and just watching TV, trying not to cry for another night. And
Mm-hmm.
I can just cry in an instant, just like um, thinking about what she went through. And so but at the same time, she thinks about what I went through, and just thinks about how torturous it must have been to just watch the love of your life just slowly fall apart. And so, anyways, I'm kind of off track from the topic, but just that I wanted to say that it's
No.
important, even in the widowed community, that when you hear about somebody else that actually does know that they've also lost a spouse, that don't compare your story to their, like, have empathy for what they've been through also, and know that what they went through is very
Right.
hard too, and just show empathy towards one another, but especially show grace towards the people that don't know. And
Yeah.
I always say this, but thank God they don't know. Like, we need to
Yeah.
be
True.
thankful for them that they don't know. So anyways, did you find it?
I did. So I'm going to read this is from the Grief Recovery Handbook. So it's about confusion about stages. Many people are familiar with the pioneering work of Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who identified 5 emotional stages that a dying person may go through after being diagnosed with a terminal illness. She identified those stages as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. One result of Dr. Kubler-Ross's work is that many people now tend to apply the concept of stages to other aspects of human emotion. Grief, which follows death, divorce, or other losses, should not, however, be regarded in terms of stages. The nature and intensity of feelings caused by a loss relate to the individuality and uniqueness of the relationship. So it's talking about like there was
Mm.
confusion. Like it's an actual thing, but it was created for those dying. And so there's
Hmm.
so many people who feel like there's something wrong with me. I never went through this. So if that's you, let that be known that that's not even applying to those grieving. It was actually made for those dying. So that's just some grief education.
I was one of the ones. I remember
Yeah.
thinking that like I didn't go through these stages, and I just chalked it up
Right.
as like, well, I guess I did go through these stages before she died,
Mm-hmm.
but I just went straight to like depression and lostness. And
Yeah.
that was like where I felt and anxiety. Oh, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And anxiety. We did an episode called Anxiety, the Forgotten Stage of Grief. And
Mm. Yeah.
um you know, I mean, gosh, I never had anxiety in my life until I went through what I went through with Lacey, and woke up in a panic attack almost every time I woke up from every single. I didn't even sleep then. It was just a series of naps. But
Right.
every single time I woke up, it was gasping for air and panicking and knowing something was wrong, but I didn't know what. And I mean, I just started having panic attacks. And so
Mm.
I still wake up with anxiety. It's not nearly as bad, not nearly as bad, not nearly as frequent, but that introduced anxiety to my life. And I
Right.
really do
Yeah.
think that I have a form of PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gosh, this dog, sorry.
Silence your
Scratching at all
dog.
my doors.
Come on.
Silence the dogs. Come on, dogs. This is 100 episodes now, almost. So anyways, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I knew you were going to say that. Like, I literally knew that was coming. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is other unhelpful things that, like, when people are afraid to say the word died or dead or something like that, the things that people say instead. Here's some of those phrases. She passed away. He's gone to his eternal rest. Dad's gone. He expired, which I've never literally heard that one. Um, we
That sounds
lost
weird.
we lost mother. Imagine how this sounds to small children who expect the truthful answers. What happened to Grandpa? Grandpa's gone to sleep. Like, so it's talking about like when you talk to children to be able to say died, like he
Mm,
died, instead of like just passed away. It says generally it's best to avoid all metaphors when speaking about death with children. Developing young minds do not always have the ability to match reality with metaphorical images. I thought that was
mm,
really interesting. So if you do have young children, it's okay to say like daddy died or mommy died. You don't have to say passed away, which is interesting. When Luke died, it was like the opposite. Like Hayden was 15 and he's like, don't say died. So he'd be like, say passed
mm,
away. So just in his mind, he liked it to be passed away. But just, I thought that was very interesting that it can confuse kids
mm.
um, about that. So that was just like a little side note when I was looking through the book. Um, let's go back to the, what's the word we're using? Clueless things that people say. Um, Peyton was, I've said this before, but he was like 11 or something. Let's see, when Luke died. Yeah, because he's 14 now. And someone in his class wrote him an email or said it to him and said, I know how you feel, my fish died. So
Mm.
now he was a little boy. I was like, whatever, he doesn't get it. And then my kids went through a phase where they're like, just nobody remembers and nobody gets it. Like, because it was COVID and they went back to school and like nobody really said anything. And that was hard for them. I think it's almost worse when people don't say anything, in my opinion. I even wrote this whole article about it before Luke died, just about people talking about his cancer. I called it To Speak or Not to Speak. And I talked about, like, I personally would rather that somebody said something, and it's usually because they are being kind of selfish because they don't want to be put in an uncomfortable situation. But I'm guilty of that. I can think of a couple of things when I've done that, even, recently when I didn't want to bring up something that could be hard for someone. I know better. Like, it's better to acknowledge it, and I would rather somebody say one of these clueless things than say nothing at all.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard it explained as like, and I totally felt the same way, but if somebody says to you, like, oh, I didn't want to bring her up, I didn't want to like make you remember, I'm like, I didn't forget. Like, I never forget, and so that's one of those things. But I'd say one of the most clueless things that people have said to me is, well, I mean, that's cool for you, but like if my spouse died, I could never date somebody ever again.
Oh, I hate that one. Like,
And I'm like,
no.
that's so easy to say when, your husband's coming home at 5 p.m. and you guys still have like a normal life. Of course, we all feel that way. But yeah, that was always my thing, is like, okay, well, try losing them, then try going for years by yourself.
Yeah.
Or months or whatever, whoever's timeline, we're talking about. But like, try going years by yourself, doing everything by yourself, and tell me that you don't then start longing for compassion or companionship.
Companion. Yeah.
And so that's been one of those things where it's cluelessness. Like, it is the definition of being clueless.
Totally. I actually had a friend. Like,
Totally.
Like, whatever. I had a friend say that to me, and I did speak up and say, you don't know. Like, you don't know what it's like. And then she later was like, oh, yeah, like, you don't know. Because, I mean, I could imagine, I would never say that to someone, but being like in a totally, like, I'm married again and, happy, like, I could imagine feeling that. I would never want to get married again. But don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say that now. Like, even though I'm like completely happily married and I can't imagine my life without Joel, if something happened to him, I don't know. I mean, he says if something happened to me, he'd be a monk. Like, he would just not. Like, he would, when we were dating, he was always like, it's you or I'm gonna be a monk. Like, I'm not dating. Like, so I'm always like, well, I'm like, no, I wouldn't want you to, like, not date anybody else. He's like, no, I would be a monk, like, if you died. But anyways, that's a little side note. But that is definitely something. Okay, so I thought of a completely clueless thing that somebody said to me. And they will never listen to this podcast, so it does not matter. Remember Hot Mom Guy that I went on a date with back in my dating days? I call him Hot Mom Guy because he wore a shirt that said, I love hot moms. And when we were on our date, I mean, most everything he said was clueless and ridiculous. But the worst one, and maybe looking back, maybe it wasn't the best thing to talk about on a date. I was talking about Luke dying. I mean, now I can kind of look back and see. Maybe that was a little bit weird to bring up, but I was talking about, I mean, I don't think I was going through his death story. I was talking about cancer, tumors, and all of a sudden he's like, I had a tumor once. And he starts, like, telling me about some tumor he had removed. And it was just like, that's not, like, my husband died. Like, that was completely clueless. Like, he was just trying to find, like, something to say, like, oh, I had that too. It was like he's trying to one-up everything. I'm like, you can't one-up death. Like, and like, oh, you want to go skydiving? I'll take you. Want to go dancing? Let's go.
Didn't he tell you he would go to the grave with you?
Yeah, you want to go to the grave? I'll go with you. Just like, totally, like, way too hyper. That was an experience.
Oh, that's funny.
An experience. So, anyways, he was clueless, like, to dating a widow, and like, anyways. Oh.
I also wanted to go back to the things we were talking about. So, we know that a lot of you listening, we've heard it from you, that you do not want to date ever again, or you're not ready to date ever again. So we're not talking about your feelings. We're talking about if your feelings are that you do want to date again or get married again, that is somebody's response to you.
Right.
is I had people say to me, it's just so weird seeing you with somebody else.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm just trying
Yep.
to like deal with it.
I've
And
heard
I'm
that.
like, oh, it's hard for you. Like,
Yeah.
tell me more about how hard it is for you to like,
Tell me
um,
about that.
yeah. So that was another one of those ones that, was hard for me where I was just like, dude, keep that to yourself,
Yeah,
like,
that's an inside thought. You keep
yeah,
it
yeah.
inside. That's what
Don't
you
let
teach
that
your kids.
outside. Keep that inside.
Inside thought.
I'm like, because trust me, for as weird as it is for you, it was even weirder for me. And,
Right.
you didn't have to go through the feelings of like that you were cheating on your
Yeah.
spouse, you
Hmm.
know? You didn't have to go through the feelings of acceptance all over again of their death. And you didn't have to go through grief again all over again. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
like somebody is saying that to you, oh, it's just so weird seeing you with somebody else. It's like,
Try living
right
it.
on. Thanks for the encouragement.
High five.
Like I feel like people should, you know, be happy for you.
Oh yeah.
Now I would understand if, say, somebody cheated on their spouse and their
Yeah.
spouse divorced them, and
Hmm.
then you got with somebody else, and then they're like, it's just really weird seeing you with somebody else. Like, you deserve the guilt. You deserve to feel that if
Yeah.
you cheated on somebody.
Hmm.
But if your spouse died and you're just trying to find some shred of happiness again, and and it could be a lot more than a shred of happiness, as we know, but just
Hmm.
saying, if like when you're first kind of considering that route,
Hmm.
you're looking for some sense of normalcy again. Like, they don't, so that's the thing they don't understand. They're like, and that's another thing I've had people say is like, gosh, it doesn't feel like it's been that long.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, for you,
I know. I've
I've
heard that
lived it
too.
every minute, every hour, every
Really?
day, every week,
Yeah.
every month, every year. I've lived it.
Hmm.
Don't tell me it doesn't feel like that long, when, you had normal, and then you might think about me, once every couple weeks,
Hmm.
maybe.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
single night I have cried myself to
Yeah.
sleep.
Right.
But anyways,
Thought of another one. And this
yes.
isn't just me. I've heard people in the widow community say this when you're like, oh, my husband died. What happened? Like, why do you need to
Mm,
know what happened to my husband? You know what I mean? Like, I usually just say he died of cancer. But, like, if you don't, people are really curious. And so that's something
mm-hmm.
that I learned. Like, let people tell you in their own timing. Don't, I think it's just really like, why does everyone need to know
That's
what happened?
interesting. I never thought about that because it never really bothered me if people
Hmm.
asked. But I get it. I get how that would be bothersome because I do remember, times when Lacey was in the hospital and I was going through hell. Like,
Hmm.
and then I'd get these like private messages. Hey, so what's going on?
Yeah, because people
And
want
it's
to
like,
know.
why? You just want the
You don't
inside
care.
scoop? Like,
Yeah.
ask somebody else. Like, don't ask the guy who's freaking broken in the
Yeah.
hospital right now or trying to get into the
Yeah.
hospital during COVID.
And I
Don't
think it's
ask him what's
more
going on.
like it wasn't obviously it wasn't even my friends because they know what happened like but it's more like social media stuff when people be like what
Mm,
happened to your husband just like
mm-hmm.
why does it matter how he died.
I saw, and you know what? From the outside, I had a friend who
You
was,
did
it was
you have a friend.
I had one.
One.
I swear. No, I had a friend that we were friends when we were young, and we kind of drifted apart. He moved away, came back, but we never really were like close friends again. But we reconnected on Facebook. Well, I had heard out of nowhere that he killed himself. To his wife, when she said, like, I just have to let you all know that James passed away last night.
Mm.
And oh my gosh, the number of comments that were like, oh my gosh, what happened? What happened? What happened? What
Right,
happened?
right.
And it's like she hasn't responded to these for 4 days.
Yeah,
Like,
never did.
obviously she doesn't want to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I found out that he committed suicide. And but I found that out through like a newspaper article or something. I don't remember how I found out. It
Yeah.
was many years ago. But I definitely didn't ask his wife what
Mhm.
happened. And but the realization of what you're talking about, like, kind
Yeah.
of hit me when you said that, because that's what I was thinking of. Is even then, this is way before Lacey ever even got cancer or anything. I knew you don't ask. Like, you just
Right.
kind of, I am so sorry. I don't need to know what happened, but but I was really curious, and I
Oh yeah,
really
that is
wanted to
true.
know. And so I started like searching like obituaries and things like that. And
Yeah.
somehow, I don't remember how, but somehow I found out without asking anybody. Um, so anyways, yeah. So I get
So
what you're saying.
little side note, and I want to bring this up because I know we have listeners that are suicide widows. So I was
Hmm.
listening to a podcast. I mean, it was a while ago, and she said that she likes it when people say better death by suicide rather than committed suicide. Like that it was some because it's with their mental health and that it's more like death. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like just like a just something I've heard
I
that I
never would
wanted
have
to
thought of
share.
that.
Yeah, and you guys that are widowed by
And I
suicide,
probably just said that.
you did. That's why I'm saying that
Oh,
you
okay.
worded this
Okay.
way. And that's fine. Like most of us didn't know that, but this was a suicide widow, and she said this is how we like to for people to say it.
Ah.
Um, so that might be something interesting. We'd love to know if you are a suicide widow, what you prefer when people
Mm-hmm.
talk about it. It is a very, very, very sensitive subject.
Yeah, and my
Um,
apologies if that was
no,
insensitive.
no, no. I don't think that was insensitive at all. I
I'm
just
not
wanted to
apologizing to
share.
you.
Okay, I just wanted to share. Like, if you heard me say something and you knew that people had told you, like, oh, it's better to say it
Right.
this way, you'd want
Right.
to know. So,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, I would want to
No,
know.
I
So I
appreciate
just,
that. I will try to say that from now on for
yeah,
sure because
I
I
mean,
never
I
thought
didn't
about
know
that.
until that. But anyways, the whole thing where people just need to know that really bothers me. But I get it. We are curious, but I feel like have respect for the person and they'll tell
Sure.
you,
Yeah.
in their own time.
And if you're not close
Yeah.
enough to know,
Right. Then,
you're not close enough to get the answers, a lot of time,
uh,
unless they want to share it or something, obviously. But yeah, if you don't already know,
hmm
yeah. Anyways, but yeah, I remember fielding a lot of those private messages, and it was like, I can't, like, do you really think that I want to, like, explain the whole thing to every single person when I'm going through this? So
yeah.
I kind of, a friend offered to kind of be like a liaison for
Oh,
me
okay.
that I just
hmm
filled her in, and then she would
Yeah.
kind of tell everybody or make an update or whatever. Um,
Yeah, and that's what I
so,
ended up turning my podcast, the Peace Cast, which I've put some clips of that on here before. I turned it into, it was originally interviewing people who'd been through hard things, and then I turned it into an update because it was like, I can't say these things over and over. So I'd say it once,
mm,
put it on Facebook, and they could listen because I was like, I just can't do
yeah,
it over and over.
no kidding. And we did another episode too that was "Don't Make Grief a Competition," and
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about a lot of these things in there also. But like I totally understand. My dad just
Mm,
died, or my grandpa just died, or my
mm,
sister just died. They're all tragic in their own
yes.
way.
Yes.
Like for example, my mother-in-law, we lost the same person,
Yeah.
but it's different. She lost her daughter. She knew her daughter a lot longer than I did. Um, Gosh, it's crazy to think. Actually, we almost knew her
Yeah.
the same amount of. Well, no, because her time didn't stop when I met her.
Do the
Sorry, I was just
math.
thinking. Sorry, well, I was thinking that I met
I
Lacey
get where
at the
you're going.
age.
Yeah.
Sorry, dumb moment. But also like I lost my wife and the
Yeah.
mother of my children, and so we both have been through really hard things, losing the same person, and it's different. And mine is no easier than hers is no easier than mine, or whatever, however you want to word it. It's just different. And so
Yeah.
when somebody tells you, again, going back to what we said in the beginning, I totally understand because, and then they make it about them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they
Mhm.
will take it from you and make it about them instead of just saying like, I'm so sorry. They will
Mhm.
take it from you and make it about them and what they've been through. And there's been a lot of times where I've had people say like, oh, I totally get it because when my sister died, we all this and that. And then they start, and all of a sudden I'm listening to them and
Yeah.
consoling them about something that happened 5 years ago, which
Yeah.
doesn't make the pain any less real. But I'm going through this right now, at the time. Um, just grieve with me, you
Yeah.
know? So, anyways, yeah. People are just so clueless.
I
Like,
know, right?
like as if.
I knew you just
I
wanted to
was I was
set
setting
it.
myself I was setting that up.
Um,
You know what? That's one of those movies I surprisingly do not know a lot of lines from. I remember when the guy was shaving his head
yes.
and he like he got all gangster in front of his girlfriend. He's like, I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it real. And she's like, I'm gonna call your mama. He's like, wait. Starts freaking out. But yeah, that was a funny movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
One of my favorite. I did introduce my kids to it a couple years ago. You got to wait till your kids are older. But I love this line, and my friends and I would always say it in high school. Let's take a lap around before we commit to location. Because that was like the scene where they go in a party, and that's what they say. And so every time we'd go anywhere together, one of us would always say that. So
that's pretty good.
Right?
I like
it's
that.
A good line. Let's take a lap before we commit to location. I mean, that way you can like see things before you commit to location. So that's one of my favorite Clueless lines.
That's awesome.
Going back to not just like, I keep forgetting the word we're using. Clueless. Hello, we're talking about clueless. Clueless things people say. Also clueless things that people do. So I just remember being around friends when they're all talking about their husbands and stuff, like a few months out or less than that, and just being like, hello, does anyone remember I just lost my husband and this is a really hard conversation for me? That was hard too. And it's not, I know it wasn't on purpose. They just didn't
forget it. Yeah, it's totally clueless.
Clueless to how that might make me feel that I had just lost my husband. And like, I find myself trying to be sensitive now to other widows who are not married again that want to be. And so I am not that clueless person just always talking about my husband and things like that. So I don't become that to someone else who, like, I obviously wouldn't do it with someone. I'm thinking like a whole different scenario, not someone who just like lost their spouse. I wouldn't be talking about that anyways. But like someone further down, like I've met a lot of widows who really want to be married again and they're not. And so I want to be sensitive to the fact that God has totally blessed me with a new husband and not be always talking about my amazing husband, which for the record, he is amazing. He cooks, he cleans, he does like I was telling my mom this. She's like,
he's awesome.
So lucky with him. I'm like, I know, right? Like literally, I think we talked about this last time. Like he's downstairs mopping the floor. Like he's just always like gets up and makes me my eggs, brings me my energy drink. Like, how are you feeling today? I love you. You're so beautiful. Like it's amazing. Like
he's such a good guy.
He
I really like him.
Oh my goodness, he's amazing. Like literally every day he'll be like, wow. I'm like, what? He's like, you're so beautiful. Wow, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And he doesn't, like, he's not just saying it, like he literally means it. He'll always be like, how did I get the most popular girl in college? I can't believe this. Like he still says it to me every day. I'm like, it's me. Like it's amazing. So
you really were the clueless girl from high school or college.
Well, no, he was.
Well, not
clueless.
from the movie. From the movie, I mean.
He never like paid attention to me. I guess I don't remember him either. So whatever. But my point is, okay, here now I'm the one talking about my amazing husband. I'm just saying.
I don't brag about him, but hold on.
Hold on, let me just share for a minute.
Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. He's awesome. There's nothing wrong with. Everybody should be happy for you, and if they're not, then that's a personal problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you being happy.
Yes. So I hope when I share about him, it encourages people. And most people tell me it does. Like, you give me hope for the future.
Yeah. Yep. I've heard that a lot too.
You can have love again and it can be amazing again. And life is, it gives people hope. That's how I look at it. It's not about, I'm trying to brag, even though I do have an amazing husband. I will say that.
I think you should brag on your husband. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that. I think that's cool. Like, I like to, you know what I mean? Like, I like bragging,
right?
You know, on my situation or whatever too. So, but I was going to say one of the things to me that feels, another one of those like clueless things was here, and it's very similar to what you were saying, but, when I would hear, and first of all, I never did this when I was married anyways. Lacey and I just totally didn't believe in doing this. When the dudes were together and they're all complaining about their wives, like they were still sitting there doing it and like, oh man, she's just nagging. She's doing this, she's doing that. And I'm like,
hello,
do you want to trade? You know,
right.
Like I'd rather have a nagging wife than no wife or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, or I've heard of people saying, and you and I have talked about this. Gosh, I wish my husband would die. You
Oh,
remember that?
yes. Worst thing.
And
That's
it
so
was like,
like
wow. Like
no.
I can't even right
I
now,
can't
right?
even imagine.
I can't even.
No, that's
As if.
horrible. Like, no.
Yeah, it's terrible. So yeah, there's so much cluelessness. But yeah, that was one of those things that like really bothered me. I'm like, really? Like you're gonna
Yeah.
but the thing is, they weren't thinking about it. They were just
Right.
doing their normal stuff.
Right.
And but you know, honestly, I didn't have things to complain about Lacey. And I remember she was the one that said, she's like, I feel bad when all these women are like gossiping about their husbands. I'm like,
I
don't have
know.
that problem, ladies. My husband's great, you know? And like,
Yeah.
she's like, sometimes I feel like I should just like think of something just to like not make them feel bad. Cause you know, she's like, well, he like leaves his socks on the side of the bed and it like bothers me, but he gets them in the morning. So I guess I
Yeah.
don't really have anything to complain about. But you know, so anyways, it was something her and I like both believed
Yeah.
strongly in, is that
Oh
like to
yeah.
keep your marriage strong, you
Yes.
shouldn't be gossiping about each
Right.
other. Like if you have a problem with me, bring it to me. If I have a problem with you, I'll
That's
bring it to
biblical.
you.
Yeah.
It's our conversation, it's our relationship. Let's not, you know, as much as possible, let's not get other people involved in it. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes
Totally.
sometimes you need an outside perspective, things like that. But gossiping just to gossip is, you know, not cool in a marriage. So, anyways,
Not cool at all. So I want to bring it back as we wrap it all up.
yeah.
I
Anyways,
want to bring it
not
back
cool
to.
at all.
It's not cool at all. I want to bring it back
Bring it
to
on back.
back streets back. All right. Is that where you're going? No.
Nope. No, mine was oh gosh, it
I
was
don't even
bring it
know.
on back. Boom, doom, 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 doom. I can't remember who that was.
Mm.
I think it was Wu Tang Clan. Wu Tang. Anyway,
Okay. Anyways, I
go
had
and bring it on back.
bring it on back to how do we show grace? Like, what do you do in the moment? You know, so I feel like something hurtful is said, just saying something to yourself, like, okay, they just don't get it. And showing them grace, like not saying anything rude back to them. If you do, it's okay, it's
Mm,
okay. But trying to like hold that in. And then maybe if it's the right situation, the right person, you can use that time to educate them in a kind way, like I did with my
mm,
friend. Like, no, you really don't know what it's like to be like single and have watched suffering and all of that. So
mm,
just kind of feel out if it is a time that you could educate. And I don't mean like a social media war back and forth. Like I'm talking in person. People are saying stuff and just like releasing it. Like how did you, because I don't think we're in that right now where people are saying things to us that matter like that, but how did you deal with that in the beginning?
well, first of all, you have to remember that you want to keep rolling with the homies. Like
Rolling with the homies. That was a good one.
you know, you want to keep that going.
You were thinking of that. I can see when you think of things. You were thinking of that while I
The
was
wheels
talking.
the wheels are turning. There's a little
Yes.
hamster inside my head running on the wheel. So I remembered that first of all, I was able to find this overwhelming thankfulness that they didn't have to experience what I did. Like I don't want anybody else to have to experience what I did. And that's just, you know, I know I'm speaking to a whole audience that's been through their own terrible stuff, but I'm just speaking for myself in that moment. I was just, well, it was like kind of selfish, but and selfless, is that I was selfishly thinking about all the hard stuff I'd been through, but then selflessly thinking like, I don't want them to have to go through that. So I'm glad that they don't know. But more importantly than that, even, was that I don't deserve grace. I don't deserve the grace that I'm given from God. I don't deserve all the blessings that He pours into my life. And so I should be able to extend grace and abundantly, you know. It's hard. We're human. But I want to be able to be a man of like ultimate grace and love and
Yeah.
forgiveness and kindness. And so I want to hear everything they say and, you know, try to think about it from a perspective of the grace that God has shown me
Right.
that I haven't deserved, that as I've thought about the life that I've lived, that, you know, I was a drug addict, and God saved me from that. Literally saved me from that. I heard a voice speak to me when I was, and I'm sorry, I'm going into something totally different here,
Oh,
but
this is good.
I was awake for 3 days on drugs, hallucinating. So, you know, some people would think maybe that was part of it, but I heard a very clear voice say to me, "This isn't the life I have for you. Go home." And I left. It was so strong. I left. I remember this feeling like somebody cares. There's somebody that cares. And it was Jesus. And I rode my skateboard home, and I slept for like 40 hours straight. And I woke up, and I never looked back, and I never had withdrawals. I never had, it was absolutely miraculous. Like, talk to somebody who's doing methamphetamine and cocaine and crack. And I know that's humiliating for me. This is a long time ago, but I've lived a very weird life, you know, and you don't hear about stories about people that have walked through that didn't have a really, really hard time quitting drugs if they made it out. It was like I heard this voice speak to me, and I never looked back. And I never woke up wanting it. I wanted to be away from it. I never wanted it ever again. And that was like about 24 years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. So it's been a long time. But I was somebody who was robbing houses to feed my habit. I was, you know, and I was always the one that felt guilty about it. Out of all my friends, you know, they were laughing, and I was the one that was like, guys, we shouldn't be doing this. But I was doing it with them. And so I say all that to say I truly know what it means to receive grace. And so I should be able to freely give it. You know what I mean? And so I know this is kind of a really serious part of a kind of silly topic, but I mean, so that's kind of how I find grace for people is I've received a lot. And so I should be willing to give it. Yeah. So anyways.
You know what I like? You're like tearing up. You're like so passionate about this. Like that just shows your heart and like your passion. So
thank you. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with all the people that are not watching on YouTube.
I just had to fill them in. So
yeah. Mark crying over here.
Listen, emotions are good. Tears are good. Tears are healing. All the stuff we said a million times. So we never want to suppress it. So
yeah, no, definitely. And there's this stigma around like men aren't allowed to cry.
Oh, right.
I mean, I was raised like that. You quit crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Like we knew you bottle that stuff up. You bottle that noise up, you know. So I was raised that way. Men don't cry, boys don't cry, you know, and as a skateboarder also, like, you know.
Yeah.
You fall a lot. And I was committed to skateboarding, so I hurt myself a lot. So there were a lot of times that you just learn that you don't cry around your friends. So, but as I became a man, I realized like there's nothing wrong. Like why is there this stigma? Like men have feelings too. So, anyways, but yeah, no, I not only am I passionate about grace, but I'm extremely blessed every time I remember the life that I should have lived. The life that a lot of people I still know traveled down, and they kept going down that road, and it did not end well. I have friends that died from several different situations, friends that were in and out of prison, you know, and well, the list goes on, but some of them are still living the life. Some of them are still living that way. Like they still think that they're still the victim. The world is out to get them. And so anyways, yeah, I went to a therapist and he said, your story's amazing. You should be dead or in prison.
Right. For
sure. But not only that you're not, but the fact that you have this view of such optimism of the world is miraculous. And he was a Christian, and he said, and it's just a testimony to the saving grace that God did in your life. And so for me, gosh, if that's some way I can give back is to show somebody grace for not having been through something so horrible. Like, gosh, I want to be able to do that, you know? That's why with that friend that I snapped on, I apologized like immediately. Yeah. But let's talk about what? Sorry.
This, like, it just like I had this whole like domino thing in my head. Like, God saved you to then be Lacey's husband, to walk her
Mm,
through this like nobody else in the whole world could have, to then be in this widow journey where we're helping widows all over the world, and then to meet Tina. Like, it's
mm-hmm.
beautiful. Like, think about if you had died, like how different life would be for so many people. And God knew that you were the one person in the whole world to walk Lacey through this. And like, I want to remind
Hmm.
that to our listeners. We've talked about that before. Like, God chose you. Like, think about that. If
Hmm.
you had never been with your spouse, then you would not have been there to walk them through whatever it is, whether it was an instant death, whether it was a long death. You were there to be their spouse, and that is a privilege. Like, I love
Absolutely.
that. Thinking back on that, that was a privilege. Like, I was the only
Yeah.
one chosen, you know? And so I hope that you can see that instead of like, this is a curse that I'm widowed. No, this is a blessing that I was my spouse's wife or husband for whatever, whether it's a few months or
Hmm.
years or whatever it is, you were chosen. And so I just got reminded of that as you were speaking.
Hmm. And it doesn't mean that it's obviously not hard, right? It doesn't mean that it was a blessing that they died, but
Right,
but
right.
but we were a blessing to them.
Yeah.
And also, like, you may have been chosen because you would bring your kids up in the Lord, and the
Mm-hmm.
the Lord knew that you could handle it. And a lot of us, we go through bouts of feeling like I can't handle this, but like,
Mm-hmm.
but also we live in a fallen world where
Yeah.
sin has led to death. And but yeah, you're right that I and at the risk of sounding arrogant, and I hope I don't, I do not think that there is a person alive who could have done a better job walking Lacey through
Right.
than me.
True.
I don't, and of course there is. I'm not that dumb to think there's not,
No.
but like I really, really don't think that the chances of meeting Lacey of somebody of Lacey meeting somebody and marrying them that would have done what I did for her. As far and for me, it was just I didn't do anything special. I just loved her a lot because she was
Yeah.
such an amazing woman. Um, but it was so hard. It was so crazy, crazy, crazy hard. She was paralyzed, and I can't even, for her own dignity, I can't even ever share on this podcast how hard it really was. But it was really hard, and I don't know that there are a lot of other men that would have stood by her side with the faithfulness that I did.
Right.
I just every day I had this whiteboard that I hate thinking about the whiteboard, but every single day I wrote on it. I had little goals for her every day. I changed her Bible verses on there every day.
Wow.
But one of the things I had on there every single day was with a check mark next to it, or a box to be checked, was smile and laugh.
Mm.
And every single day, no matter how bad her cancer got, well, towards the end, but that's a totally different story that I'm not going to get
Mm-hmm.
into. But while things were a certain way, I'll just say, as long as possible,
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
uh, I made her smile and laugh every single day. Even going through what she was going through, I was able to make her smile and laugh every single day.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and help her find joy every single day. So I'm sorry, this totally turned into like a brag fest, and I didn't mean to do
No, it's
that. But
not.
just
Like,
like I was trying to keep it on topic with what you're saying is that you were
yeah.
chosen, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe that. When you told me
Yeah.
that for the first time, I remember that vividly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was like 4 months out,
Yeah.
and maybe 3 months, and you said when we first met that I just felt God telling me that he wanted me to reach out to that guy
Yeah.
and say that I, God, am proud of him and that I chose him. And I remember when you first told me that, I was just wrecked. Like,
Mm.
I was like, I needed to hear that, like,
Yeah.
so it's very true. So
Yeah.
anyways, Sorry, I went off on a
No, I'm just
tangent
thinking
there.
the whole domino effect of everything, and that was for the people that might not know. That was our very first conversation interaction ever.
Hmm.
Was that conversation through Facebook, and here we are today doing this podcast. Hopefully, helping people. We know there's people all over the world that said it helps them, so it's just cool to see
Yes.
God's hand in everything, and like just
Yes.
all the stuff.
It's
So
amazing. It's
it
such a
is,
blessing to have been chosen for
yeah.
this podcast. I
You
mean,
didn't
it's
want to be chosen in the beginning, but here we are,
I was like,
93 episodes in.
Michelle, stop asking. I'm not doing a podcast.
Well, good thing I'm very persistent. So,
You are, and I do remember it was like I felt like God was putting it on my heart to do it, and you hadn't asked for a while, and I felt like God was putting it on my heart to do it, and I said, "All right, here's what it is. If she asks again,
oh,
I will say yes." And then I remember you were like, "So, like, what do you like? Seriously, like, what do you think about a podcast?" And I was like, "Let's do it." And you were like, "What?"
I remember going, "What?" It surprised me. So
And here we are. That's
93
crazy.
episomes in. Which,
Yep.
speaking of that, I just want to share this with everybody. We have
Yes.
a plan for when we get to episode 100. We are going to do, drum roll, a live episode. You heard that right, live episode. We're not sure exactly how that's going to work. The details will come soon, and we will let you know when it's at, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah, come watch Mark cry and sing, and
No edits, but we don't really edit that much, anyways. Like nothing.
we don't. But
just-
it makes me nervous. I don't know why,
I
but
think it'll
we're
be
going for it.
fun.
So tune in to see if I mess up.
Yeah, in 7 more episodes. So a
Yep.
couple months probably till we get to episode
7
100.
after this one, right?
After this one, we have 7
So for them,
more,
7 more. Okay.
like a couple months. So that'll probably be November, sometime before Christmas.
Ish.
We'll give you the exciting
It'll be a
live
Christmas episode.
Christmas episode. Anyways, you want to pray us out?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll pray us out.
Pray us out.
Oh, Lord, as if we need any more things to thank you for. Oh, thank you for laughter and for joy in even like the darkest seasons of life. Thank you so much for all that you've done for us, walking us through this journey and taking our boats to the other side of the grief, the grief lake. We pray for all those listening, Lord, that you would be with them and help them have grace for the clueless things that people say, and just help them understand that we are all human beings. We are all trying our best, and that usually people have good intentions, and help us even when they don't, to show grace and love and compassion, all the things that Christ tries to teach us to be. And we'd just like to thank you so much for this ministry and what you've allowed us to do. We thank you for entrusting it to us, and just thank you, Lord. And it's in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So I'm not going to say the usual. I'm going to say it differently.
Not even gonna, all right.
But they know what they're supposed to do. Bing! No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so if you have not, I'm going to say it differently. Pattern interruption. It's good. If you have not subscribed to this podcast, actually, I listened to a podcast and it was a different term. It's not subscribed anymore. Followed, maybe? Whatever. The button that you push so that
Do it.
do it. That you get your episodes every week without even thinking about it. Then you want to make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever it is, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places that people listen. That would be awesome. And we do really appreciate if you would take just a minute or two to write a couple words about what you like about our podcast, because that helps get the word out to other people. If you would like to be a guest, we now have an application form that we have a link in the show notes. You can fill that out, and we'll get back to you about being a guest. And also wanted to mention, as you guys know, we are under Widow Goals, the nonprofit that I run. We not only provide social media support, podcasts, we do grief recovery scholarships and events. So if you've been blessed by the ministry and want to give back, there's a link below for a tax-free gift. All right, I think I covered all the stuff. So thanks for listening.
Great job.
As if, and...
As if. Like, totally.
Like, totally listening. Wait. Okay, 30 seconds of talking like clueless. Like, totally thanks for listening. And, like, as if. Let's take a lap. No, wait. Take a lap before we commit to location, okay?
That was great. Oh,
Where's your lines?
I don't know. I just totally drew a blank.
Rolling with the homies. That's like the only thing you know.
Yeah, it was like I just forgot how to like talk
It's
Valley all
good.
of a sudden. I think I've been living in Tennessee too long.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Tennessee? Is that how you say it? Like Tina?
Tennessee. So
Tennessee.
people with an accent, they whenever there's an like Tennessee for us, how we say it, Tennessee,
Yeah.
they say Tennessee, like Tin. Or
Interesting.
like my neighbor told me about it, and she was just cracking me up. She's like, "Yeah, like we don't say Ben, it's like Ben.
Oh,
Like the name Ben, it's Ben."
interesting.
So, anyways, so Tina and I have some funny exchanges because she's got a southern accent.
Nice.
It's mild compared to some people here in Tennessee, but
Yeah.
Tennessee. But yeah,
Tennessee.
anyways,
All
yeah,
right,
we have
we'll
a good
see
time.
you guys next
Yep.
time. All right.
Like, bye.
Like, bye. Totally.